Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have an excellent attacking game to share with you. This was played in 2021 in Engine Battle. On the white end, Zahak, rated 3101, playing against Leela ChessNetwork. Still a baby at the time, rated 3057. Alright, on board we have a Nimzo-Indian Defense, classical. And Leela's weapon of choice against the classical is knight c6, the Zurich variation. Pressure on d4, newly weakened square with the queen on c2. In comes e3, and now e5, trying to influence the duo as soon as possible. And we get just that. White grabs the space. From here, knight e2 is played, with the idea to next question the bishop, and in that way, should there be a capture on c3, the knight recaptures. And in that setup, do you know white maintains a nice grip over the e4 square. Now, why is this maybe important? Well, if you question the bishop right now, black would have no better than to exchange on c3, otherwise you run the risk of being squashed, trapped. So if a3, chop, chop, there isn't as much control over e4, and black could consider in many lines playing e4 on the king side, so grabbing space on that wing. So it is first the connecting of the knights, and now anticipating this a3 move, Leela flicks in a5, timely here. The idea, well, after a3, the bishop is now preserved. It has a way to fall back. It's not going to be trapped in this case, nor is there going to be a follow-up, at least right now, this follow-up idea of b4. Got a5 in there. From here, knight g3 is played. I wondered about the following. Can white be disruptive to black? Before this d6 move is in there, could this bishop be bothered? And after it falls back here, is there a positional pawn sacrifice with d6? Sometimes this is a thing. This really wouldn't be anything great for white. Black could simply take, and these pawns will be able to undouble. Because of this control over d5, d5 will be played shortly. It is not as if in this position white could clamp down on this square with e4. That would extend the scope of the bishop, and knight g4 would be available. So that really wouldn't go anywhere. Knight a5 with then d6. It's knight g6 here. d6, some more development for each, naturally preserving the bishop, and white castles. That's move 12. So we're about middle game phase, I would say. Black has to come up with some plan. How to improve the quality of the pieces. I want to point out this move, black's last move, bishop a7, not a whole lot of stuff is moved by Leela on the queen side. Everything I'm highlighting here doesn't move for the rest of the game. This is the side of the board where white has space, the queen side. There's a lot of sitting with the queen side pawns and pieces. So whenever there's b4, this pawn isn't going to budge. If ever there's a capture, the rook is going to be helped. A lot of sitting on the queen side. The play is going to be primarily on the king side from here. These are the only two queen side pieces that contribute in this game, and they fly out in a very effective way towards white's king side. This is where the bulk of the play is going to be for black, towards the white king. And many of the moves flow very nicely. They tie in well with one another. This is the side of the board, the king side, where black has a stronger pawn, let's say. 4th rank pawn versus a 3rd rank pawn. So where do we go from here? Well, Leela kicks off with this idea of knight g4. It's not a stable square. It is questioned right away. And it falls back to the edge. So what's the big picture idea with this knight maneuver? Clear the way for the f-pawn. The king knight is moving so that the f-pawn could move. Not long off from now, we're going to see the queen knight move so that the queen could move. And a little bit later on, once that pawn is on f5, that pawn is going to move so that the bishop can move. All right. Something I wondered about here is the stability of this knight. Is this a possibility in some cases? Now, in the game, b4 is played, but I wondered what's happening if e4 is played. Are we really okay as black having double isolated h-pawns, having a fractured kingside? The answer is yes. This would not be a good way forward for white. I want to draw some attention to a line or two that kicks off from e4. Do know, as soon as e4 is played, this bishop's eyes open really wide. I mean, I would consider this a top piece in this position at this stage. Pinning a pawn has access to d4. d4 would become a hole. White could very easily experience dark square issues playing in this way. So if the intention behind e4, in other words, is to follow up with the bishop captures knight, that's the good bishop being exchanged for the knight. And dark square weaknesses could easily be a problem here for white. So for instance, in this scenario, the knight's ready to dive into d4. It also happens to be a threat, knight takes knight. With the pin here, it says best in this position, king h2, looking at queen g5, calls this around -1. Now, if I take this out just a little bit further, I want to bring it to the following point and let you know that in a scenario like this, black does best to duck this light square bishop exchange. Bishop d7, is considered top. Reason for this is because if you exchange light square bishops, this knight it's currently on the edge, but could really turn out to be a monster piece. What piece is going to challenge it on e4 if there isn't a light square bishop around? Now, it still likes black here. It's pointing out some line where the f-pawn ends up being lost, but a knight on e4, just know that will compensate. So something to note. It is a good idea to duck the light square bishop exchange in this case. Going in for this capture on h7, black would already be in a winning position. Some follow-up queen g6, the bishop will end up being trapped. It's considered a winning position if this pawn is won here. Black is doing really well in this position here. Rook, bishop tying in well with one another. Nice open lines. Put both rooks on the G and F files. Things are looking good here. In short, not a good idea for white to go forward with this e4 move, trying to hunt down the knight. In this game, it is queenside play with b4. f5, naturally. Knight reroutes. Computer's looking at a push here with c5. Okay, the knight reroutes to c3. It has an eye on this b5 square. Knight g6 and queen h4. Follow up. f4. Not budging with the queenside stuff as mentioned. So, I mean, rather than f4, there might be this thought, do I preserve the bishop and try to tame the knight? Nope. Black is just going all in, pushing away here with f5. Pawn takes, knight e4, and there we go. Bishop takes h3. What a nice way to develop that piece. Grab a pawn in the process. Now, white's response here is to capture on c7. This ends up being a losing move. Best play runs like this. Queen c3, some defense over the third rank squares, and there's this idea to form a battery here on g7. Rook f7 would be the top reply to that. And then it's looking at some crazy lines here with sacrifices on d6. We're still in for a very tricky game ahead. It's calling it around equal. All right, not the way this one is played. we get knight captures pawn. Here's the other question. What's happening if the bishop is won? So pawn takes bishop. What are we doing here? Not recapturing. The idea would be to plant this pawn on f3 straight away. If you take the pawn, that gives white an opportunity to play f3, and that allows some second rank defense, maybe the rook lift, maybe a timely king escape. All right, the plan here, should the bishop be captured, play f3, and this will immediately win the piece back, pretty much. Taking is considered best, with then knight g5 as an only move. Here's the thing, if you avoid this, or if you try to preserve, I should say, the bishop, you're going to get mated. Queen takes h3 and then mate on g2. So probably not a good idea there to take that bishop with f3 right around the corner. In this game, it's knight takes c7, and the response, f3. Who cares about this rook? Just clearing the way, busting up the whole kingside, hammering away at g2, opening up a square for the knight. This is completely broken for white. White's reply is with pawn captures pawn here. If bishop captures pawn, naturally there's going to be that exchange sacrifice, and then with no light square bishop around and this new weakness here on f3, a light square weakness, it should come as no surprise that that will be a focal point. Knight e5, rook f8, could even flick in a bishop captures rook in some case to get the material back. This is a crushing attack. So white plays it with g takes f3, and now we have a reposition of the knight. Still not even moving with this piece. The focus here is on f3. Knight takes rook, knight f to e5, and the queen falls back here to defend. Flicking in bishop g5 would just be inviting the queen to a more aggressive square. This is the focus. There would be 3 attackers on it and only 1 defender. The queen goes home to defend. Bishop f5. Taking the rook here would let white off the hook. Queen will be a pretty good defender from f1. It's calling that one equal from there. This here is the bigger prize. This is probably white's best piece, and it's ready to be eliminated. Follow up from here. Bishop g5 can move forward, keep pressure here, and there's also this idea in some cases to coordinate on g2. From here, knight c7, it's too late at this point. Knight is way out of play. We chop on e4, hop into f4, mate in 1 threat. Knight is removed, and these 3 pieces alone are enough to force white to play queen to b3, giving up a full queen. Anything else, and it's already reading a checkmate in 4. That's how bad this position is here for Team White. The plan, rook h4, queen h2, or h1 for mate. How do you interfere with that? So if queen b3 wasn't played in this game, if something else, let's say f3, we'd have a mate in 2, check, and then checkmate. I'm not even sure what else to try. The rook, making some room for the king. We still slide over here, mate in 1 threat, and if f3 in this position, yet again, a check, and then in this case, rook h1 will be checkmate. So pretty much the end, approaching the end of this game here. Silly move, giving up the queen, and of course this is going to be completely winning from here. Just seeing these last handful. After queen to g4, that's where this game ends in black's favor. The knight is going to be won shortly. If I'm to take it out a little bit more just to show you, this is how it could play. King in the corner, we could see mate. And if the king goes in the other direction after queen h3, it's starting to be a bit more clear that the knight will be won after queen h1, and then queen takes knight. Any idea like this of the rook getting down here to maybe be disruptive, this wouldn't be anything I'll carry this one out. I'll show you a pretty cool line that goes straight to mate. Queen takes on f2, here, checkmate. And after king to d3, the rest of white's moves will be, well, the king will only have one option along the way. Pretty neat forced mate from here. This is maybe how the game could have ended. Only move again. Only move again. Only move again. And then we could see a fun checkmate with the pawn. All right, in this one, though, we only go as far as queen g4 check, and this one comes to an end. So what did you think of this one? Very nice kingside attack here out of this Nimzo-Indian classical Zurich variation. Anyhow, feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.